All right. Hey, Vikings fans. Welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, talking about the Vikings.
Yep. And tonight, if you're watching, you can see we are gifted with the presence of friend of the show, Forrest, yet again.
Thanks for having me back. I think why I'm here is we got some exciting news. We're going to be talking about brand new brew day.
Yeah.
Coming up really soon. I think this Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yep. We're excited about that. We also had to spend some time recapping the Super Bowl. There were a lot of good stuff to talk about with that. We also tried a really good beer from Great Revivalist Brewery, which I'll probably have to go find again because it was really good.
Yeah, it's super good. Tonight we'll also recap last year's brew day when we brewed the Skol Hop, the hoppy American Amber Ale. Is that what we called it last year?
You are right.
And then we kind of talk about what we hope for this upcoming brew day and how this new brew will turn out.
Yeah, so grab your best beer available and let's toast to it.
Skol.
Skol.
Hail.
We are going to start out by just giving a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Big Top Ventures. If you're looking to take an all-inclusive vacation to either Mexico or Jamaica, you definitely need to email them. You can do that. We're going to put that right down underneath here. Big Top Ventures LLC at gmail.com. Again, that's Big Top Ventures LLC at gmail.com. Send them an email. Let them know what you're looking to do, and they'll hook you up with the best rate possible. So Thanks, Big Top, for the sponsorship. We appreciate it.
Yep,
they're awesome.
Sure. And again, I think our contact is still, I mentioned it last episode, I think our contact is still in Cancun right now. So
must be nice.
Hope he's listening. So we're
supposed to get dumped on with snow in a couple of days too. So
I don't believe it. I'm just going to choose to be in denial for that one. So
we don't have to be in denial about beer, which you brought us. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so for reasons we'll get into a little bit later, I guess we don't have to keep it a secret. We're going to be brewing a beer. If you're watching, and I think he's already made a little bit of noise here in the last minute or two, but if you're watching, you can see we are graced yet again by friend of the show, Forrest. Thanks for coming back on, Forrest.
I appreciate the invite, guys.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, you'd be welcome anytime you want. But specifically, times that you come on, you're a Bears fan, which it's okay. We'll let you get by with it. You're wearing the Michigan sweatshirt. You're much more of a Wolverines fan.
Absolutely.
But the other main occasion, one of the other two main occasions, is beer. You are a beer aficionado. Is that the right term?
I don't put my into that caliber. I have no certifications or anything like this, but
and you won't say this, but I absolutely will because it's true. You are an extremely talented amateur beer brewer.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever had a single bad beer of yours that you've brewed, and I've had quite a few beers that you've brewed. Some are definitely way better than others, but none of them have ever been bad. So in my eyes, you are extremely talented. You should be a professional brewer at some point.
They've been all, I'd say, drinkable. So
whatever. You've had some that, oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's been a few.
Yeah, they've been amazing. But yeah, we will be brewing the second edition of the Skol Hop beer. I don't know what we'll end up calling it, but that's coming up here next episode, I think.
Yeah.
Depending on how we record these things. We're recording an episode now. In the next few days, we will be having a brew day, and then we'll be recording another episode in a week. So potentially 3 straight episodes, depending, again, how we release all this content. But Forrest, you'll be with us the whole way because you are the mastermind of brewing beer. And we'll talk specifically about the kind of beer that we'll be brewing, but we have the beer tonight is Great Revivalist Brewing out of Clinton, Iowa. We've got their Backroads Brown Ale. And the beer that we will be brewing is along the same lines as a brown ale. So that's why we went with this one. But I haven't had this one before. Have either of you?
Nor have I.
Nope.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I've seen this can before. It's really colorful artwork. Looks like a very typical Iowan can, and Backroads is kind of a typical Iowa thing. So
They're
I'm
very
excited.
full. I can tell you that.
What
They're
was
very
it
full.
recently? Didn't we have another one that was
Yeah.
really full?
We did, and we made a little bit of a mess. I still have a paper towel, so we're good here.
That's okay.
Forrest, since I'm holding my mic, could I
Yes.
ask you to pour?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you're, in addition to being a beer connoisseur and a great beer brewer, also a good beer pourer.
I'm just a little
You're the
offended.
worst.
Oh man, that's almost as egregious as saying the wrong term for gifts.
Yeah, let's settle this debate really quick.
Yeah.
No.
Forrest?
Austin's. This is actually pretty good
GIF
for
or
him.
GIF?
Is it GIF?
Didn't you ask me this question?
I probably
before?
did, but I don't remember.
It's definitely GIF.
Thank you.
Oh, man, I'm
thank
outnumbered.
you, Forrest. I really thought I was going to have to let go of
and
two.
Austin
friends.
did not influence me. I believe he asked me this on like Friday. We hung out and he asked me the same question.
Okay. Well, we've opened up
I take
these.
it you're a GIF.
Yeah, I'm a GIFfer.
So what do you call the peanut butter?
GIF.
But it's spelled with a J.
What do you call the really tall animal with a long neck that starts with a G?
I like
a
it.
giraffe, obviously.
If you want to see more, we have a whole video of Austin and I going around and round
Of
on
Evan
this
being
issue.
wrong about how
No.
you say the word GIF.
Well, there's one thing we can all be right about, and that's that beer is good.
Yep. So let's give this
Delicious.
Backroads a try. Skol.
Skol. That's good. It's got like some almost chocolatey notes to it.
Yep.
That is a solid, dead smack in the middle of the category brown ale in a very good way. Extremely dark. You're not seeing through it at all. Really good head retention if you have a correct beer pour. This is really good. Evan, you're definitely the brown amber guy between the two of us. Forrest, I think you just can appreciate any decent
I love
beer.
this. I mean, it's like you said, it's chocolatey. It's malty.
Malty for sure.
And I think it was 6.7%. So it's nothing to joke about.
Yeah. So it doesn't really have any description on it. There are some words that almost looks like a song written out on it. I want to read it out before I actually say it out loud. On the can it says, "Truckin' got my..." You know what? I'm just gonna. You can look up the can art yourself.
I like how you tried to like screen it really quick.
Yeah,
and then
I
you're like,
couldn't.
no, this is good.
No, well, I can't talk and read at the same time. So the whole time I was saying, well, I should probably read this. I wasn't reading it, even though it looked like I was. Great Revivalist. I said, Forrest, I haven't had a bad beer that you've made. Absolutely the same thing about Great Revivalist. I haven't had a single bad beer from them, and I've had a handful of beers from them.
They do a good job.
Yeah,
really good job.
Their tap room in Clinton is awesome.
It's an old church, isn't it?
It is an old church.
I haven't been there yet, but I would like to go.
It is amazing. It's
It
like
is
the
awesome.
physical culmination of the greatness of their beers. Like, you can tell they put a lot of care and effort into making this old church into a fully fledged out brewery restaurant,
Yes.
but it still has like some of the original church pews and piano and equipment and stuff are built into some of the
Yep.
tables and stuff.
Yep.
It's really cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I definitely recommend people check out their site. It's really cool, and I believe to encourage you to go there, but also they're going to be opening up one in Rock Island. It's an old, I think it's an old museum or library, or I can't remember. It's a building in Rock Island that they're kind of restoring and doing kind of the same thing. It's so
That's even closer to home for us than Clinton.
Yeah.
So
It kind
that's
of
awesome.
adds a little bit of uneasiness, though, because we are an Iowa-only beer podcast.
I totally get it.
So,
As long as it's brewed in Iowa, I don't care where I drink it.
well, that's true, but like if we need to make sure, specifically with Great Revivalist from here on out, once they open up that Rock Island location, because that's Illinois, Rock Island, Illinois.
My guess is because they have all their Hanks, and Clinton, they'll probably do some more in Rock Island. So they may have different offerings depending on which area, but I don't want to speak for them. More to come. I just wanted to make sure people knew that they're a great brewery and they're expanding. So
yeah, I like it a lot. Can't wait to give a final thought here in a little while.
Cool. Well, there was a big game that was played last night. None of our favorite teams was in it.
No.
But we watched begrudgingly. And
we can break the news. It was the Super Bowl that was played,
the Super Bowl, yeah. I don't know if we'll get sued for saying that by the NFL.
No, it's only if we're like selling things in tandem with it. Like if we were trying to charge for like a big game party or something. I don't know.
Anyways, the Super Bowl was last night. The Eagles absolutely trounced the Chiefs. It was actually kind of enjoyable to watch from that aspect because it was just nice to see the Chiefs get beat for once. But I've got a handful of questions here that I just want to run down. Just kind of quick, like, snap reactions. What did you guys think about some of these different topics? Okay?
Yeah.
Ready?
Go for it.
Let's start with the new score bug for Fox. I was scrolling Twitter during the game, and this was one that came up a lot. Opinions on this new score bug thing for Fox.
I mean, I noticed it. Forrest, I don't know if you noticed.
I did. Not enough to... I think I'm good either way.
Yeah. Very minimal.
It didn't distract me at all.
Yeah, that's not one. The only time I think I'm ever going to like truly have like a overall opinion on any of the networks like scoreboard is if it's like confusing or hard to read. This one was kind of big at the bottom, wasn't it? Kind of took up.
Yeah, it was taller. It took up a little more space at the bottom.
But I mean, I don't know. I could see everything I needed to see.
Yeah, I don't. For me, I guess it didn't distract me at all. Like I noticed it was different, but not enough to, I guess, call it out like a lot of people did. So
I think the people that had a problem with it were probably Taylor Swift fans that don't normally watch football, and maybe they had gotten used to the other score bugs from the other like CBS or how Fox used to look, and they were just mad because they don't really know what they're looking at, so they don't know what to look at on the score bug. So I don't know, maybe just figure out football. And
I didn't like it. Actually,
I'm so sorry, Evan.
But it's not because I'm this uneducated Taylor Swift fan.
Taylor Swift is the background screen of your laptop I'm looking at here.
Yeah, right.
I've been meaning to tell you.
But I did feel like they were like it felt like there was stuff missing. It just felt like things were hidden almost. It was very boxy and very compartmental almost. So I don't know. Wasn't my favorite. It didn't detract a whole lot from the game. It's not like I spent all of my time just like staring at the scoreboard like, oh, it's different and this is terrible. But I don't know. Folks out there, drop a comment and let us know what you thought of it. Was it good? Was it bad?
No, I've had those instances on different things that specifically, not to deter the conversation, but like now that Peacock Network is doing like basketball, like college basketball games. Mm-hmm. I hate the way they present scoreboard.
Is it because it's difficult to?
It's just it doesn't make any sense, and that maybe they've gotten better, but I get your point that sometimes even little changes can.
I was with somebody last night that said, bring back the old school, like upper left-hand corner, like the gray box, Fox one, like the old school one. Like I'd be in favor of that. That was actually like kind of a golden era of football, one that we all kind of grew up during, and I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
There was like a weird couple of years, and I think it was Fox, that like it was like in the transition between like HD and just standard definition, that if you were watching an HD, which by the end of it we all were, it like cut off some of that score bug just on every single game. And like,
well, it's because all of the old TVs were formatted for 4:3 and HD is formatted for 16:9. And
the best, not to get on a tirade, but the best is when like, say an alert, like a weather alert comes up and it scrolls out the bottom and then it blocks out the whole scoreboard. Like,
I don't
it's
care.
Just like that's when you wish it was just in that right upper column,
But yeah, I pulled it up. It's very minimalist. I mean, I don't know. It takes up a lot of real estate on the screen. I feel like we've spent way too much time on it talking about it right now. But there's nothing, unless you thought it was too big, I don't really know what there is to complain about.
Like I said, I'm not going to complain about anything specifically because there's nothing specific to complain about, really. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the change. Maybe I don't like change, and I just got used to the banner that went across the bottom. And
yeah, well, and it wasn't just you. I mean, it was a major talker.
Yeah, that's why I said people on Twitter were blowing up about it. Let's move on. Next one. Couple of Taylor Swift sightings. We've already mentioned her. Also, the first sitting president ever to attend a Super Bowl.
Is that true? Was he the only one ever?
Remarkably. Really? You'd think like Obama or maybe even Trump in his first term would have done it. But yeah, I couldn't believe that he was the first sitting president to actually attend a Super Bowl.
I feel like just the logistical nightmare is enough to be like, you know what? Let me skip this one out.
Maybe.
That's another one. I could care less.
Well, another interesting thing that happened was Taylor Swift got booed pretty vehemently, and Trump got a rounding.
Well, you have to remember, this is in New Orleans after, the January 1st, and I don't want to get in politics, but I feel like a lot of New Orleans felt they got shaded, by the previous administration, and so they're kind of happy that Trump said he was going to do some things for their city, and I think that's probably, regardless of if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever, that's probably why he got some more cheers. So
yeah. I mean, I think the NFL Taylor Swift love story it's played out.
You're a closet fan, aren't you?
Wait, what do you mean? What did I say? I think it's played out. I mean, I think the only people really talking about it anymore are probably diehard Chiefs fans that are either super annoyed or super happy about it, or just diehard Taylor Swift fans that are still super attached to the Chiefs because that's Taylor Swift's team.
What
now.
I found interesting, kind of going off to, there were more memes with her looking disgusted than there was, with say Mahomes or Kelsey looking disgusted. I felt that was interesting.
I did see one that was kind of funny, the monkey meme that has two shots of the monkey, one looking in the side towards the camera on the side of it, and then the next frame is the monkey looking ahead of itself, but it's to the other side.
It's the exact same.
And Taylor side-eyeing the camera, and then which could have been, those two pictures could have been 5 hours apart, but still it's funny to see that. I think it's another one that is more social media talked about than actual football fan talked about. But
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, the next one here is maybe a little bit more football fan-esque. There was a really early offensive pass interference against the Eagles that was pretty questionable. I don't even remember who the receiver was, but he kind of...
AJ Brown.
Yeah, was it AJ Brown?
Yeah.
He kind of shoved off of the defender's helmet a little bit. He kind of put his hand up, and he had the face mask of the defender and allegedly pushed off, and that was enough for them to throw the flag. When I went to Twitter after that, everybody's blowing up, same old Chiefs with the refs on their side. This is going to go the Chiefs' way. Obviously, it didn't affect the game, and the Eagles won handily, but what did you guys think of that? What were you thinking when you saw that?
Well, I think I said the first Chiefs advantage was the coin flip was probably right.
Forrest and I watched together.
But going back to the OPI, I think it drew enough because I think it was towards the face mask area, or if it was shoulder pads, I think if they would have thrown a flag, I would have had a little more beef with them, but because it had to do with the face mask, I had no problem with the flag.
Yeah, Forrest, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think in the moment I was like, I can see why they threw it. I'm not going to argue it, but I could also have seen if they would have just not called it,
right,
being so early in the game, which I hate that excuse. If you break a rule, it doesn't matter if it's in the fourth quarter or the first quarter.
Exactly.
It also doesn't matter if it's in the Super Bowl or the first
the rules
preseason
weren't
game.
Except for when it's Super Bowl or when it's 2 minutes or less to play. It's just...
But in that moment, I think I said I can see it. I can see why they called it, but I could have also seen a no call. It did kind of get me to start thinking so it isn't automatically going to be the refs are, extension of the Chiefs team this time. And I really think, and maybe it's just diving into the conspiracy theory even more, I really felt like the Chiefs were definitely not getting calls that should have gone their way, and not egregious like, oh, the refs are obviously calling it for the Eagles just because they don't want to look like it. But I mean, I could kind of see that.
Yeah,
there was one later in the game. I think it was in the second half. Patrick Mahomes got lit up in the backfield, got sacked, and they probably could have called it roughing the passer, but some other penalty had happened elsewhere on the field, and they'd already thrown that flag, and it was kind of just, well, by nature of throwing that flag first, we can't throw this other one kind of thing. At least that's the way it kind of seemed when they justified the call when they announced it. But
well, and to that point too, there were a few times, especially in the second half, credit to the Eagles, they didn't blitz at all, I don't think, or much at all. They got most of their pressure on Mahomes with just a 4-man rush. But there were a few times that Mahomes would get hit, legal hit, nothing egregious, but I noticed him kind of look up like, am I going to get the flag? Not like jump up and make a big circus act out of it, but kind of look up like,
we did see that, and you're like, was he really expecting
he's
it?
Conditioned.
He is conditioned, and he has that team. The Chiefs are conditioned to get those calls, whether or not it's a conspiracy, whether or not you agree with it. I mean, look at the Packers and Aaron Rodgers days. I mean, like, it's a fact. Like, you can look up the facts of, like, yeah, for those few years, the Packers were the most ref-assisted team in the NFL by far, and I think it's the same with the Chiefs. Whether or not you want to admit it, Mahomes is going to get the calls more often than not, and I think the refs were called out. Was it the head of the ref association or whatever came out the week leading up to the Super Bowl and had some comment like, I think it's shocking and appalling that you would think that we would be favoring one team. Maybe there's a little bit of going over the top the other way.
I have to, you almost have to believe that they were overcautious to make sure it seemed that they weren't biased towards the Chiefs. I don't know.
And again, I hate saying stuff like that because I truly think there is no conspiracy. There might be an unrecognized bias that helps out the Chiefs,
right?
But even then, it's not enough to effectively hand somebody a Super Bowl victory, I don't think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it seemed like things evened out as the game went on. It seemed like, for the most part, there were still some calls that were a little questionable, but that's also just any NFL game, right? Like, you watch a Bears game and you're, yelling at the TV, and we watch a Vikings game and we're doing the same thing.
You definitely, if you're rooting for a specific team, you're going to have a little more
which we've done it countless times this season
on things. Yes.
And again, I feel like every time in this previous season that just finished on the Skol Hop, it's whenever we've talked about refs, it's, man, they had a rough game.
Yeah.
That was a frequent thing we said about multiple games. This year, the refs had a rough year. And I'll still stand by it. I think we're in that weird transition time between fully on-field refs and fully AI refereeing. I think within a few years it'll be almost perfect. It's just we got to get there, and it's going to be tough to live through for a few more seasons.
Yep.
Let's talk about an Iowa boy for a minute. Cooper DeJean on his 22nd birthday with a pick six. He looked good. Yeah. Not just on the pick six, but just the whole game. Like, that guy's
He had like an 87 PFF ranking or something like that, which is pretty darn good, especially for a rookie. And whether it's an eye roll thing to say or not, I think he's the first white cornerback to start in the NFL for like decades, which again, that it doesn't mean anything, but I mean, still, like, it's enough to point out that stat. Iowa boy, I think my wife told me just yesterday, he attended Ida Grove.
OABCIG.
Oh man.
It's one of those multiple multiple consolidated school districts,
Which
bunch
I
of little
think-
towns. OABCIG, I'm pretty sure is where he
Okay.
went to
I think
school.
Ida Grove, which I've got friends.
Ida Grove is a part of that.
Yes,
It's
yes.
the IG in that
Okay.
acronym.
Yep. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's kind of crazy that I know Ida Grove. I've been there. I've spent a couple weekends there. When me and my family have gone, we have significantly increased the population of that city, and there's only 5 of us. I think at that time there's probably only 3 or 4 of us. But to think that an NFL contributor could come from that area, like we're everywhere. Iowans
the dude
everywhere.
knows how to play football. I mean, you definitely saw it when he was in college that he was a great just ball hawk.
He also didn't fair catch, wave the fair
Oh
catch.
gosh, here we
It
go.
wasn't even close.
Let's not go down that
It
rabbit
wasn't
hole.
even close.
Anyway,
I'm an unbiased source on that particular incident, and I think he waved the hand. I think it was a fair catch.
There was something
there
going
was
on.
enough movement.
It wasn't a wave. A taxi driver would not have stopped for him.
He's unfortunately never going to live that down, and that's a
Yeah.
bummer.
Well, I think he can
he's
look
got a
back
pick
at
six
last night's and be like,
Yeah,
yep.
he's doing just fine.
Yeah, he's got a pick 6 in the Super Bowl on his birthday off Patrick Mahomes when his team just demolished a dynastic team in
Yeah.
the Chiefs. He's got no worries right
As
now.
I say, I mean, congrats. I mean, specifically to him that he got that pick 6. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. I got excited watching that, and I'm not even really a Hawkeyes fan.
Yeah.
It was cool. I was like, that guy came from Iowa, and like not just like went to Iowa for college, but like grew up here.
Yeah.
He's an Iowa boy through and through.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Iowans were proud, and I know a lot of Hawkeye people were excited about it.
absolutely.
Too, so.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next one here. Best commercial. That's always a fun
man.
Super Bowl tradition.
You know, there were some decent ones. I don't think they're what they were in the past, but I don't know. I really like the pickleball one. That was pretty good. That's
With Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, play for an ultra, and
Yeah.
then they just take over the world
Yes,
playing for.
yes.
That's kind of, I could see that. I didn't mind the, was it a Nerds commercial after halftime?
That's
that was
right.
like, I think I tweeted and said, man, that Nerds commercial was better than the halftime show.
Yes.
Or Skittles or whatever commercial
Yes.
it was. I don't know.
Was that the one with all the classic character? What one was that had all the classic?
Oh, that one was
Characters.
like Uber Eats or
Oh, maybe
DoorDash
that's-
or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
what-
remember that one
Yeah,
too.
the puppy monkey
I think I
baby.
like that because it's
Yeah,
nostalgia.
Puppy Monkey Baby was in that one.
Nostalgia.
And they made sure to say it, have it say its name.
The
within
Kool-Aid
first-
Man was, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, puppy monkey baby.
I liked the Mountain Dew seal commercial.
yeah.
Seal
Yes.
as a seal. It was a
I
little
just
creepy.
got that song out of my head.
Yeah, it was a little kiss from a rose. That was a good one.
Well, I think I told you guys before we started recording. I saw a meme earlier today of John Hamm from Mad Men in Mad Men standing in front of a whiteboard, and all the whiteboard says is he's got his hands out like hear me out, and all the whiteboard says is but he's an actual seal. And I immediately knew what he was talking about.
That's awesome.
That's good.
All right. What did you think about the halftime show, or did you even watch it at all?
We watched it.
I'm sad that I watched it.
Well, so I've heard in the moment I was like, what is this? Like, this is awful. But I've heard a lot of people say, oh man, it's the best halftime show ever, and it's so poetic and so much meaning. And I think I've come to the conclusion that it just wasn't for me. Like I'm not in the target audience.
I can agree with that. That I know like one of his songs.
Well, and I think I heard too that Kendrick Lamar, the halftime show, most of the songs on there were from a very recent album.
Okay.
Correct? Like December.
And
It could have been.
And not only were they recent, but all of them were directed at a particular individual named Drake.
Yes.
And I don't know any. I actually went to Google and was like, "What's the beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake?"
You and millions of other people.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a heavily Googled search last night. But yeah, it seems really petty.
Yeah.
It seems really
It
dumb,
does.
and they just are
I know
just
there's
throwing stuff out there in their songs.
Like I said, I think he's obviously a great artist. He's not my cup of tea, but good for him. He can say he halftime the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it at all, and I didn't think like the dancing or anything around it either. even elevated the music. So I just didn't like it.
I will say this, as it's taking a 10,000-foot view of it, it was well choreographed. The words I could understand, none of them were F this, F that, or like just some crazy thing that, I mean, my 7-year-old daughter was the closest one to the
That's
TV, and I didn't ever think like, oh crap, she just saw that, like I need to get out of the room. Like, there was no scantily clad people either way.
No Janet Jackson moment.
Yeah, there's no wardrobe malfunction or anything like that. If there was some horrific tone behind everything, I totally missed it. My 7-year-old daughter absolutely didn't understand any of it. I mean, there have been worse things to see during a halftime show.
I agree from a visual, yeah.
But as far as like a show, like I said, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, because I'm sure I've seen it. There are people out there saying, "Oh, that was amazing,
to each their
groundbreaking."
own. I mean, you just asked me, did I like it? No, I didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah, and I'm not a halftime show guy anyways. Like, I think I said last week, it could be my favorite band out there, and I'd be like, okay, like, why are we singing in the middle of a football game? Like, let's go. And if you are a halftime show person, that's awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, didn't ruin my experience. The horrible game was pretty bad, but I don't know. The halftime show just didn't do anything for me.
I'm a halftime show guy.
Good, and that's
I like
fine.
halftime shows. I don't like the over the top, women doing stuff they probably shouldn't do on TV. I'm not a fan of those types of things, but I am a fan of like quality entertainment that's wholesome and good. And
Yep.
I think there's a lot to unpack with this halftime show, and I think that's why it went over most of our heads. It went over my head. Yeah. I watched it. The kids were in bed, and I was just like, okay, let's watch this. And I had actually rewound because I was like, this game is terrible. Nothing's happening. The Chiefs got the ball to start the third quarter, did nothing with it, and then it was just kind of all Eagles after that.
Right.
So I went back and watched it, and I'm like, this is really politically charged almost, because everything was red, white, and blue, and his dancers were in the form of a flag, and you have the first sitting president ever in attendance, and I was like, what does all this mean? And then all of a sudden you've got Samuel L. Jackson, who's claiming he's Uncle Sam, and he's narrating this show.
Yeah, that was odd. I like it. He multiple times, between the songs or changes sets or whatever, he's doing his little piece, and
I thought that was Morgan Freeman.
That was Samuel L. Jackson.
I did say that a few times, hey, they got Morgan Freeman. I obviously knew.
There were a few moments where Samuel L. Jackson kind of took on his Coach Carter persona from that movie, Coach Carter, and I could appreciate that because I love that movie. It's a great movie. Oh, man. But anyways,
that might have been my favorite part, because I was like, I know who Samuel L. Jackson and
well, Serena Williams made a cameo too.
Did she?
Yeah, apparently that was another dig at Drake, because that's Drake's ex-girlfriend. Apparently, I didn't know that.
I'd rather talk about Taylor Swift.
I don't follow these celebrity things. Anyways, I don't know. I would like to unpack the halftime show more. Not here. This is not the right place to do that. But I think there's a lot there. Did you guys notice Jalen Hurts and his weird looking face mask? It really stood out to me.
I did not notice
it. It looked like a
picture.
It looked like a space mask almost. It looked like he was gonna jump on a rocket afterwards and fly to the moon. I'd never noticed it before, and maybe it's just
that he was
first
wearing...
picture right there, not that one.
Oh,
go back to
I only clicked that one because he had a Super Bowl patch on, but that must have been from the last time.
That one, yeah.
This one right here,
yeah,
that's the same.
It's
the visor's built in.
The visor is a part of the helmet almost, and how on most of them, right here in the center on the forehead, there's kind of that clip that holds everything together. It doesn't look like that's there, or it's kind of blended into the helmet. And maybe it's also the wings of the Eagles logo that come off either side of it that just kind of make it look like it's a part of the helmet. But I don't know. It caught my attention. I'm like, man, that's a new looking helmet face mask visor design.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times on people throughout the last season or two. Twitter says it's a Riddell Axiom 3D helmet with an Axiom 2B SW face mask, which I just bored everybody in the world here.
Oh, I totally get every little bit of that. Makes sense.
But yeah, I think it's relatively new. I think I've seen this a couple of times out there. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. I didn't even pick up on it watching the game though. So
I noticed it for the first time last night. That's the only reason I bring it up. What about this next one here? The Kirk Cousins curse is no more.
Man, this year has been the last
wild.
365 days have been really tough. Even more since week 10 of 2023. It's been tough for Kirk Cousins, unless you only look at his financials, and then he's doing pretty good.
And I think that's really all he cares about.
That's all I would care about. Good for him.
If you're unaware of what the Kirk Cousins curse is, until last night, no team had ever lost to Kirk Cousins in the regular season and gone on to, first it was make the Super Bowl, and then a team did that.
Last year, yeah.
So then it was win the Super Bowl, and now that's off the table as well, because the Eagles lost to Kirk and the Falcons in the regular season, and now the Eagles defied all odds. And
I love that someone, including yourself, was tracking that type of stat.
Yeah, that's only something we've seen on Vikings Twitter.
That's good.
All right, I'm going to lump these last two together here because we've been long-winded on this first part, and we've got plenty more to talk about with beer specifically. How about this? Pick one. Chiefs should burn it down completely and just start over, or the Eagles need to do whatever they can to bring everybody back and try to run it back next year.
I'll let Austin take. How about you take one? I'll take one, and then
I'll just be quick. I think it's really hard to win one Super Bowl. It is extremely hard to win two, and the Chiefs just proved it is basically impossible. It is impossible to win three in a row
at this point. Yes.
The Eagles, they have been good the last few years. I think they're still in their window. It's not impossible for them to do it. I know they've got a couple of big free agents coming up, some solid linemen, which that's, if you have a good offensive and defensive line, that's kind of step one. And then their quarterback, they definitely could still be good for the next few years, but I think they should just kind of do the smart things because they've proven that they can get to the Super Bowl every few years the last decade or so. So I don't think they need to do anything drastic to keep those pieces if they're going to cost too much for them. And the Chiefs, I don't think they have to burn it down, but I mean, you start to think, like, how many more years does Andy Reid have left? How many more years does Travis Kelce have left? Mahomes, he's still in his prime, but
he's 29.
But he's obviously one of the best ever to play quarterback, so he's very expensive, which takes away resources from being able to build the rest of the roster. I don't think the Chiefs are done by any means, but they might have a few years where they have to kind of reset at some pieces and reload. Replace some expensive free agents with some hits on draft picks. So it could be a few years before the Chiefs are back in it. And the Eagles, again, they could be in the same kind of thing where they have to reload a little bit, but I don't think either team has to burn it down.
Yeah, I mean, everyone saying Chiefs just need to get new O-line, D-line players, obviously, as you saw in the Super Bowl. But they got the pieces. I mean, it seems like they just always strike gold with the next good thing. I mean, we all knew Xavier Worthy, rookie, out of Texas, he was going to be a speedster and good, but man, he's filling that role nicely. Mm-hmm. I think they're set on offensive weapons. Even if Kelce goes, I mean, you look at this season, Kelce just was not as much of a factor as he has been in the past, so maybe he just tired as well. I don't know.
Yeah, what is he, 35? Which is not that old in terms of real life, but in terms of football players, he's pretty ancient out there.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the Chiefs. I mean, so Checo goes down, they just signed Kareem Hunt, and he did great for him. I mean, so just the Chiefs always. It's probably a lot just to do with the coaching and the offensive scheme that they can just plug in anybody and they'll look good. So. Yeah.
I think as a as an NFC North fan, as a Vikings fan and an NFC North fan, I would hope to see the Chiefs burn it down, rebuild, move forward, and maybe the Eagles just kind of find that middle road so that, these other teams in the NFC can maybe, approach. I don't know that the Eagles run it back. Like you said, they've got a lot of free agents that are going to be walking away.
Mm-hmm.
Kellen Moore is a head coach now.
Yeah.
Right? Their offensive
Is that
coordinator's
official
walking.
yet?
I'm pretty sure it's.
I mean everything but the dotted line. But
he may
yes.
not have signed a contract yet, but I think it's as good as done. And yeah, Sirianni, you're looking at the headline right now. Sirianni at the end of the game said, "Hey, let's run this back."
Well, he didn't say that.
No, he said some other things that I can't repeat. Otherwise, we have to put the explicit tag on our podcast. But no, he was pleading with Kellen Moore post game, even on camera as he was being interviewed, stick around, let's do this again. We can do this. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think Kellen Moore is going to be gone. And
you can't blame the guy. I mean,
Oh yeah.
And I kind of hope, for our sake, as fans of other teams, that the Eagles kind of turn out like we all think the Lions will, where these great coordinators are gone now and their head coach is going to be left with well, what do I do? And he's not going to know what to do. So that's my hope.
Yep.
And I don't know, Andy Reid, maybe he can just retire. And
he said he's doing at least one more year. At least
he said that?
before the Super Bowl, that's what he said. So
Yeah. And good for him. I mean, he's obviously a really good coach. And
he's a great coach. Yeah.
maybe one of the best, but yeah. I do think it's probably probably a decent bet that the Super Bowl will feature two different teams next year.
I would take that bet probably. I mean, you still think the Bills are just on that verge, on the AFC. Baltimore is always on that verge.
Washington proved that they're a team to mess around with.
So
the Lions.
Yeah, yes. While betting favorites probably are still the Chiefs and Eagles, maybe for next year, the likelihood that both make it back it's hard. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl.
Any final thoughts on the Super Bowl before we move on to beer?
I enjoyed the Super Bowl more than I thought I was going to.
I agree with that.
But yes, I'm glad the season's over. So
Yeah, same. I'm ready to start looking at free agency and the draft, and let's reload for next year.
All right, there it is. Well, let's transition to the Skol Hop 2.0 in terms of beer, because that's what we're brewing. And what I wanted to do here was I wanted to do a quick recap of last year's beer. So last year, it was pretty much about this time. I think it was February, March-ish that we brewed.
it was.
That was my first brewing experience ever. And I was just kind of there to film things and document the process. But I got pretty involved. You guys kind of were like, here, you do this and do that. And I learned a little bit. I wouldn't say that I could fly solo, but
I agree. I've been, a right-hand man at least 4, 5, 6 times with you, Forrest, on brew days.
Quite a lot.
And I'm still not to the point where I'm comfortable, just to start. I'd have to do a lot more research before I dove in.
I think you could do it if I put you to the task.
Yeah, because essentially brewing it's a recipe, and you just follow the steps. It's not rocket science, but there are some things you have to be pretty detailed about, and there's other things that you can just kind of let happen. But yeah, I mean, and of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but to someone who's never done it before, and maybe you can speak to this too, it's not as crazy difficult as you might think. You just need to know the steps.
I don't want to advocate that everyone should just go and make home brew right away, but it is pretty simple to make.
Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy.
That's
correct.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. That and
there are a lot of steps.
It may be okay, but it's not going to be something like we're drinking right now.
Correct. Yeah.
If you think you're going to do that on your first brew, even if you follow the instructions to a T, I think you're going to be very disappointed. Just because.
Yeah.
And it's a process too. I think that's what I learned, and you just have to trust the process and go through each phase and starts by making sure you have good equipment and clean equipment, which we spend a lot of
Clean.
time cleaning.
Yeah,
Yes.
sanitizing is
Clean
not an
and
option.
sterile.
It's that
Yep.
you could do everything else right, but if you have something not 100% sanitized, you might as well just pour it all down the drain, because it's going to give you some stomach problems.
Yeah, I can attest to that because I've had some of that.
And that didn't happen last year with the
Nope.
Skol Hop beer.
That is
Thank
true.
It did
goodness.
not.
That beer last year, my
It
goodness,
was good.
Forrest.
It was
That
so good.
Phenomenal.
Well, I appreciate that, but I do want to. Let's talk about. So it was a hoppy red or hoppy amber ale.
Yeah.
Kind of because Austin's more on the hop side, and Evan really likes the amber ale, so we kind of took a angle for both, and it turned out really well. It was a recipe I kind of made on the fly. Really, I have a software that helps me kind of do all the scaling to make it hopefully good. But yeah, it turned out really well.
We used several different hops, and we even dry hopped a little bit, right?
We did.
If I remember right.
Yeah, we did. We used Centennial. I had to write this down because it's been a year. Cascade and Centennial hops. So 2 really good hop profiles that have a piney, citrusy flavor to them, and when you dry hop, it just gives more of that aroma. When you crack open a beer, you get that nice whiff of hop as well. So,
and dry hopping, again, when you brew beer, you have the day where you boil everything together, you mix it all together, then you put it in a fermentation bucket, essentially.
Correct.
And it sits in that bucket for usually a couple of weeks, 2-3
Correct.
ish weeks. Well, dry hopping is a step during that 2-3 ish weeks where it's fermenting, where you add more hops, which don't really do anything for the alcohol content. It's really more just about the aroma and a little bit of flavor.
It really does nothing to the alcohol or the bitterness. It literally is an aroma to the beer. So
it'd be like making a pot of chili, and then 2 days after you made it, adding jalapenos or something just to change up the flavor a little bit. So
it's something obviously you see a lot more on the hoppy, the IPA scale. You see it with the hazies. That's exactly what dry hopping is, because it just sits in that fermentation bucket, and as you can imagine with hops, it basically makes it so it's not clear anymore on the beer, so it clouds it up. So, yep.
Yeah, I think that was maybe like one of my favorite aspects of that beer was the fact that it was a red ale, but it had that hoppy characteristic even upon first aroma. Like as soon as we had bottles first and then we tapped the keg later, as soon as you got a whiff of it, you could smell that aroma of the hops. But then as you got into it, you got more of the maltiness and deeper characteristics of
I would
what
say,
I like.
I would say when we say hoppy, we could definitely gone even hoppier. I think it was on the mild end. It definitely had a little bite to it, but nothing extravagant for what you call an IPA. So it was more on like the pale ale side of hop. So
we need to be careful, guys. I'm thinking about that beer too much right now. We might have to brew that here in a month or two.
I did have it in my notes to discuss if we were going to revive this beer, and if anything, would we change anything? But we can talk about that
Someday we
later
need
date.
to. Someday we definitely need to.
Yeah, that might be an off-season brew day.
It could be.
Other than
awesome.
this upcoming week, where we're going to brew another version. So I'm really excited about this version. Forrest, you want to tell us a little bit about at least the general idea of where we think we want to go with the new version of the Skol Hop beer?
So I think I want to set the story straight. I don't think this is a beer where I shouldn't. Speaking for myself, and you guys can correct me. We're not really promoting this as the Skol Hop Beer 2.0 because
correct. Yeah,
I think the beer we made last year, the Skol Hop Beer, was awesome as we just discussed. There might be some tweaks, and that would be 2.0.
Yeah.
Where this one, we just wanted to have another good brew day. So, There's a style of beer I have never brewed before, and it's a nut brown ale. So hence kind of why we did a brown ale as a beverage tonight to try to get our palates ready for this. And so nut brown ale obviously is very similar to a brown ale. It's going to have obviously a little more nutty flavor to the palate, to the aroma. It kind of goes back to like an English style tavern beer. So it's something I haven't done before, and pretty excited to brew. So
I just flash of the pan came up with a name for it. I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to like be like, oh, I just said a name on the show and you guys have to agree to it because I said it while we're recording. But I'll let you know, and then we'll either way we'll come up with a good name for it.
I mean, I think honestly, I'd really like your guys' influence. Obviously, we're brewing it because of the Skol Hop. So
I did come up with a like honorable mention name only if we were a Hawkeye podcast and not a Vikings podcast, but we could call it the Marvin McNutt Brown Ale. And that'd be pretty funny.
Man, that's hard as a Michigan fan too.
Yeah,
you double hit me with the Bears and Michigan.
And I'm not even a
just
Hawkeye
resigned
fan.
from being the official brewmaster of the Skol Hop.
We're not going to name it the Marvin McNutt Brown Ale, but it did come to mind.
That is pretty clever though.
Yeah,
we'll give you that.
But yeah, so I'm really excited. This is a type of beer that, I mean, if you've been a Skol Hop listener since we started almost 2 years now, you've probably picked up on the fact that, yeah, I really only ever started just grabbing hazy IPAs, and that was my go-to other than like the cheap, lagers and stuff. But Evan, through your influence, has really opened my eyes to ambers and browns and these darker, more full flavored beers. And so I'm really excited to be a part of brewing one of those, and not to put any pressure on you because there is no pressure. It's just us and a few other people that are going to try it. But again, I've said it before, I've never had a bad beer you brewed. Forrest, I'm really excited to have a brown ale by Forrest.
Oh my goodness. That's pressure enough. No, I think this type of beer is one that you can easily make, or it's a simple recipe. Once again, I know ease comes into how often you brew, but there's certain types of beer that you can't cover up easily, and not that we try to cover up mistakes, but I think a brown ale's somewhat forgiving if we're not spot on certain things. So I think it's gonna fare well with what we're trying to accomplish.
So what kind of ingredients are we looking at?
So we're definitely doing about 11 pounds of grain, and I brought a little bit of grain for us to sample, just to get a profile. And so basically what you have here is a pale malt, and that'll be probably 70% of the grain build. Just a simple, almost every beer starts with a pale malt or a 2-row or something like that. That's easily accessible. So we can, if you want to pass that around, you're going to just get a nice bready taste to that. Feel free to grab a smidge too.
Here we go.
And there's going to be other grains. I'm going to put some brown grain into there. What they call Victory in there. And then what I also brought was the darkest of the grains we're going to put in. And this is only going to be actually 4 ounces of like 11 pounds worth of grain. So it doesn't need much, but it's a heavily roasted grain. And if you want to try that as well, it's definitely got to be much more...
it's definitely darker than the other one. It's
almost like I always like to tell people with grains, it's kind of like a coffee bean.
I was just going to say
the longer you roast it, the more you're going to get flavor wise out of it. I think from a standpoint.
Yeah, this the second one, you say, I mean, it looks roasted. I was going to say it's going
to be definitely more bold, a lot more bitter, just because of its. But amazingly, that's going to give enough color that's the other part to it, is you want to do some color. So
Yeah, because as we're drinking this with the Backroads Brown Ale from Great Revivalist, yeah, I mean, I said it's one of the first things I said about it earlier. It's a dark beer, so you're saying
the darkness. Ours is probably going to be a little lighter than that. I'm not sure what their grain build was, but it's gonna. We're gonna have enough color in there to give a nice brown look to it, but not over. I didn't want to go chocolate. I wanted to have a nice in between. So
yeah.
I'm hopeful. And then I just wanted to really quickly talk about the hop profile. Obviously, this is going to be different than last year's because we're not going so much on the hoppy route. But every beer needs some hops to it. So we're going with one called Fuggle and then East Kent Golding. And both of those are more towards the pub style ales, the old English pub style ales, the brown ales. You have more earthiness to them, and so I'm looking forward to. I haven't brewed with the Fuggle ones yet, so that's going to be fun.
Sorry,
and
you're saying Fuggle?
I believe it's pronounced Fuggle. It's Fuggle. So
the double G would necessitate a hard G sound.
Right. So that's what I'm going with.
A good sound. Double G though.
Double G.
Okay, so it has to be double G to give you that hard.
Let's not go down this road.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Can't wait to send you a GIF.
And
sorry. Anyways,
I think there's only one G.
I also, I keep talking about how nut brown ale is more of an English style ale. So of course the yeast is called Nottingham.
Oh sure.
So,
Nice.
So just to wrap that all up and what ingredients we're throwing in this thing, it's gonna hopefully measure in about 6%. That's kind of what we're going for. So
You said 6%. Okay.
a 6%.
That was pretty much about
Yeah,
where
I think last year's
beer
beer literally landed right at 6.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because for a while last year, the temperature of the room that our beer was fermenting in was not as warm as it should have been. It was really only about 60-ish degrees, my basement. But then you came in clutch with one of those heated blankets, essentially, to put around the fermentation chamber to give it that extra oomph to finish fermenting, and that got it back up to right at 6%.
Yep.
So we've already learned from last year.
So every yeast has a little bit different of what temperature it likes to work at. So, but typically, you want to be in the lower to upper 60s. If you go too high, it'll kill the yeast, and if you go too cold, the yeast basically falls asleep. So it's like in hibernation mode. So
yeah.
Something I noticed with the grain. Did you see where the grain is from?
Ooh, okay. So the grain says it's from Roseville, Minnesota.
Yeah,
so
there
if
you
you're
go.
a Vikings fan, if you know anything about,
well, Northern Brewer is out of Minnesota. I'm sure they have lots of different warehouses throughout the country, but
the darker stuff is out of South Carolina.
oh,
there you go.
Interesting.
So kind of the darker stuff that'll give it more of that malty characteristic, the brown characteristic. That's South Carolina.
See, even I buy my ingredients from Minnesota place.
But yeah, the foundation of our beer will be rooted in Minnesota. That's a good thing for this
but
beer.
importantly, brewed and fermented in Iowa.
Yeah,
so
so
that
we're going to be on location at Austin's place like we were last year. So
I got some work to do on the garage, boys.
You better make sure it's clean
I can come
and
over and help you.
sanitized.
Yep, it'll be sanitized, and most importantly, the equipment will be sanitized as well. I can't wait. I'm super pumped. Brew days are fun anyways because you also get to drink and usually eat lunch and stuff
Brew days
together.
are so fun. And I will speak, it's one thing to brew by yourself. You can do it. It's more fun when you're with other friends and everything. Not only because they pass the time, talking and drinking beers with you, but it's also nice for cleaning up. So
Spread out the workload a little
that's
bit.
right. Yep.
What are we expecting to be different this year versus last year's beer?
Well, you guys are more experienced, so I'm putting you in charge. I'll just kind of monitor the situation now.
Forrest, you and I, we've had one brew day since the Skol Hop beer last year,
Yes.
haven't we? Oh, just one?
I think just one.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I think we learned a lot from it's because I had never brewed at Austin's place, so trying to figure out the best setup. So I think we kind of have a good idea of how that's going to work this year from the get-go. I think, like I said, I don't take it lightly that you guys have now been around, to know kind of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to help immensely to keep things moving. But also, I brewed a few more since the last time, so more under your belt, I think the more confident you get. So
absolutely, we do have some game film, so we can go back and study up. Make sure that we're on top of our game.
That is true. Skol Hoppers, we have an unreleased 24-ish minute video encapsulating last year's brew day that, again, we've never released. Let us know if you want us to put that out there. Maybe we should watch it again, see if we need to clean anything up. I don't know. But
I think it was pretty clean.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not like vulgar, but quality wise. I think
there might have been some that we're just sitting around, but
and we actually recorded an episode last year during the bulk of the sitting down period.
Yeah.
We hung out. I remember we were talking about JJ McCarthy being early second rounder, late first rounder kind of thing, and now here he is, the proverbial starter for the Vikings,
the savior. Savior for the Vikings.
All right, let's slow down with that. Let's manage our expectations.
I can't.
You've been a Vikings fan long enough. You got to learn this skill.
The dude's the winner. What can I say?
Last time I saw him play, not in an NFL preseason game, he was winning a championship. So
we can only hope that he brings that to Minnesota, but
it'll happen. We got the coach of the year now.
Heartbreak happens too.
We haven't even said it yet. KOC won coach of the year. That's pretty awesome.
That's true. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that on the Skol Hop at all. We probably could have talked about that. Well, I guess that wasn't out yet on our last episode, so we couldn't have talked about it.
There might be a name of the beer, something around JJ.
There's some work that we can do. There's definitely. I wrote one down, and since I wrote it down, I'm not feeling as hardcore about it.
We'll wordsmith it. I'm an English teacher. I'll figure it out. We'll make it happen.
Maybe some of your students can tell us what we should name this.
No,
just don't tell them what it's for.
Yeah.
No, some of them have already discovered what it's for.
It's all hypothetical. We're not actually doing it.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'm excited for Brew Day coming up, and of course, if you're out there listening, this is kind of the first of a 3-part series for us. So this was kind of the pre-brew. I'm really glad, Forrest, that you brought some of the ingredients. It was fun to just kind of get some of the initial flavors of what we're going to be putting into those big kettles, and ultimately making several gallons of a beer with
about 5 gallons, right? Is usually
we're going to make 5 gallons basically. I mean, I kind of monitor it as we're getting close between the 4 and 5, taking gravity levels. So I'd rather have quality over quantity. So I think last year we ended up about 4.5. So
something like that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. But that's exciting. And so the next episode will be live on location from the brew day.
I mean, as live as a pre-recorded podcast.
As live as you can get. But we won't be here. We will be in your garage probably, unless we have to change location due to weather.
But yeah, I mean,
it could be kind of cold. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. We'll figure that out.
We might have to bundle up a little bit.
Yeah, we had to do that last year. It was pretty cold.
It was cold last year. I bundled up pretty good. But anyways, we will not be here, that's for sure, because this is not a good place to brew beer. It is a good place to record a podcast, however. And then we will have another episode after the brew day, just kind of as a follow-up, to kind of just talk about how things went. And of course, between now and that episode, there's bound to be NFL news for the Bears, for the Vikings.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about all that in the next couple of episodes as well.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet, not to derail it too much, from at Nicholas Miller, Nicholas M. Miller, a different Miller, no relation, I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
That says, as of now, February 17th is a key date for the Vikings. It's when the contracts for Sam Darnold, Byron Murphy, Stephon Gilmore, and Aaron Jones, man, I'm not even Minnesotan. Aaron Jones, it's when their contracts all void. So they have void years tagged on.
Yep.
And at that date, I think it's one of those, if they're still on the roster as of that date, it's automatically void and they're free agents. So that is a big day. So I think our brew day is before that February 17th day, but I think that's
we're on the
next
15th.
Recording day for us.
Yep.
Yeah, we
for
would be.
the next official episode.
That is true. Yes.
So really quick, maybe we can just rapid fire this to close things out. There's no football until August. That's sad.
The Battle Hawks are
They're
kicking off.
USFL.
All right,
USFL.
Well, it's just the UFL.
I know,
No,
but
it was USFL.
and the XFL. That's right.
The
It's
St.
USFL,
Louis.
yeah.
We're. I didn't tell you this yet, but
We're going?
No, we're going to become a St. Louis Battlehawks podcast. I will become part of a St. Louis Battlehawks podcast. On
You want big top ventures to keep funding this? You'll be a Battlehawks fan.
Good news for you. I have some other recording equipment. You can take that home. You can do your own thing.
Hey, there might be something there. Anyways, there's no NFL football until August.
No NFL football. No NCAA
I don't think
football.
till September. Well, I mean, preseason, but yes.
August. It's coming, but it's a ways away. Forrest, we'll let you pick Michigan or the Bears, or you could do both. What are your off-season hopes for your teams? Austin and I will chime in with our Vikings hopes.
I'll say one plug for Michigan, and then I'll move to the Bears since it's more NFL focused. Michigan got a new OC from North Carolina, so Chip Lindsey. So I'm kind of excited about that. And we do had the number one quarterback coming in as a freshman, Bryce Underwood. So
Nice.
Could be exciting
it
times.
could be exciting.
Maybe they'll beat Ohio State.
After signing day, we're the number 6 class or for recruits. So
There
we'll
go.
see what happens.
What about the Bears? Ben Johnson, the answer.
Man, if he's not, I don't know. The Bears, at least I feel, did everything right this time around, where in the past when they've had a coaching vacancy, it felt like sometimes they're just pulling out thin air.
I had never heard of Eberflus before the Bears hired him.
I had only heard because Brian was a Colts fan.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew about Fox, obviously with his history. But it just the Bears just had never done, I don't think, a fantastic job with. I felt like they were always on the behind of who's left over, and this time they really took the initiative. I would say Ben Johnson was the top guy for almost every team. I'd say at least every team was at least interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not their top, but so I felt like, I mean, we're paying him a ton of money for never being a head coach before, but I'm excited. I'm excited that he comes from that world of being able to, I think, going to help Caleb Williams out, the offense out, and in his first, thing, he was saying we need to build up our lines, our O-line especially. So he notices weaknesses from the very get-go. So I'm excited to see who we get free agency draft. Let's move on. Let's get the next season started.
Yeah.
Is his contract, Ben Johnson's contract, bigger than KOC's on an annual
that's the
basis?
thing. I don't think they've officially announced KOC's contract.
Yeah, because
He's
ours-
on like a 13. We've heard rumors of like a 13,
I was
14
gonna
million
say,
a year.
I bet you it's pretty comparable for what KOC's gonna get.
Which is crazy
so.
because KOC has 2 winning seasons, playoff appearances. Obviously, one not great season, but he dealt with a lot of injury, and now he's got a Coach of the Year tacked onto his resume.
Right.
But
So
not much else to show for it.
Friend of the show, Dustin Baker, who was just on last week, said he had a source, and this was from a couple of weeks ago, right after the KOC contract. He said his source was saying O'Connell's deal was $13 million per year through the end of 2029. And I think Dustin also put out an article on Vikings Territory. .com within a couple of days of him sending that to us that kind of outlined at least what he's heard. So I think KOC's deal added on to his current through 2025, which kind of brought that average per year number down because 2025 is less. It's probably like 6-7 million. But yeah, after 25, his average is probably something like 14-15 million.
Right.
But Ben Johnson, I mean, just off of coordinator reputation alone, he got that $13-ish million a year.
did.
So I'm hoping as a Vikings fan, it just crashes and burns.
Of course you are. and I can respect that. I mean, as a rival in the same division, I think it's like I said before. If the Bears don't do good, it's not because of their lack of trying this time around. I think they did their homework well. I was a little scared, before Ben Johnson when they were floating out names like Mike McCarthy and everything.
Oh man, I was hoping Mike McCarthy.
I was a little scared.
Well, Poles was a little bold to just say, "Yeah, we're interviewing everybody. Like, we'll leave no stone unturned." Kind of philosophy, and it's like, well, there are a few stones you could leave unturned, like McCarthy. Like, just don't even turn down.
I think Bears fans in general were really excited that it seemed like the front office finally got it this time around. So,
well, and I hope it all crashes and burns. But my honest thought process as of right now, and listen up, Lions fans, you quality people, you are dripping with sarcasm there. I'm genuinely, as of this moment, February of 2025, more concerned as a Vikings fan about the Bears moving forward than the Lions. Because the Lions just had all of their actual coaching ability gutted from their team. It wasn't just the coordinators; it was like lower level, assistants and stuff too.
It was a ton of staff.
They're basically left with Dan Campbell, who has balls of steel and can lead men through a brick wall. But I don't believe in his. He's never called plays, offense or defense. I don't believe in his ability to keep up with the quality that the Lions have been the last 2.5 years.
It'll be hard. Just because they put the level so high that I think everyone's expecting a drop. I don't know how far.
I'll be happy to eat these words if I'm wrong, but I genuinely think, and maybe they'll figure it out after a couple of seasons, and Dan Campbell will get another couple of great coordinators that he develops again. But I think the Lions.
I mean, has he filled he promoted within for the
I haven't
he
paid
promoted
attention.
within on I think one of the OC or DC
potentially,
and then he hired outside I think on the other one. I can't remember which one it was. So
I think Ben Johnson's going to continue his success, and maybe it'll just be on offense, and there will be some weaknesses on defense. But I think the Bears, are going to end up being more powerful than the Lions.
They hired Dennis Allen for their DC and everything.
Oh, so, that's true.
So it's going to be. I think the Bears, as a Bears fan, we're excited. I mean, this is. I can't remember the last time we actually felt like we actually hired potentially good people like. Now, whether it's on paper, whether that turns out to be the actual result is totally different. But anyway.
All right, Evan, same question for you. I want you to answer first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. I was
about the
pointing at you.
Vikings.
I think mine is twofold. One, it has nothing to do with the Vikings at all, but it has something to do with another team in the division. We've already talked about the Bears. You've brought up the Lions now. I just hope the Packers remain like mediocre. I just hope they remain just middle of the road, not great. I hope that they don't change a thing in Green Bay. Like,
well, if you're Josh Jacobs,
the
they definitely need to get a wide receiver.
Yeah, no, let's no wide receivers go to Green Bay. None of that. Let's just everything can stay the same, and they can just be mediocre again. That'd be fine. They can finish third in the league, in the division, and I don't think anybody here at this table would complain about that.
I would definitely have no qualms.
Second thing is, you got to get Byron Murphy back. You brought up that tweet just a minute ago of these guys that are their contracts expire essentially in a week from today. 7 days from today they expire. You said Darnold, Murphy, Gilmore, and Jones.
Yep.
I think of those four, you have to prioritize Byron Murphy. He had such a good season. He had so many interceptions. And the Vikings are just so needy in that defensive secondary. They need him back, and they need a lot of those other guys back too. You need Cam Bynum, is what I meant to say. You need him back. You hope Harrison Smith musters up another season before he retires. And you probably have to go out and get a guy in free agency or the draft or something. But
well, the nice thing is the Vikings do have a chunk of change to be able to maneuver and potentially fill those weaknesses.
Roughly $70 million, which is nice.
And what are your thoughts? Do you think Sam Darnold's for sure gone? Because I'll tell you my opinion right after you say yours.
I'm kind of on the fence, honestly. Like, it would be a luxury maybe to keep him just because he's familiar. He played so well. He gets along really well with KOC. He's got a little bit of chemistry now with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. It didn't seem like he developed a lot of chemistry with TJ Hawkinson, which is maybe a little concerning.
That was tough because
TJ was weird.
Barely got to see the field.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think he's going to demand a lot of money unless he's willing to take less to stay. And I also think he probably wants to start. I don't think he wants to go sit the bench behind J.J. McCarthy, and I think that's kind of where the Vikings are headed. And I know there are it's a really divisive issue in Vikings fanhood right now. Like, you're either, bring back Sam Darnold because he's a known quantity and we can run it back with him, or you're in the J.J. McCarthy, like, nah, Sam was great, but man, he really crapped the bed in the last couple of games of the season. Let him go, save the money, and let's ride the train with J.J. McCarthy for a couple of years while he's cheap and see what we can get.
I'd say money would be my main thing. I mean, what you're going to spend on Darnold, to bring him back, you could be potentially using for other big playmakers.
And I think I'm kind of in the middle of the road on that. I think if there's a compromise that can be made to get Sam back, not for $30 million or whatever he's going to demand out in the market, but for less than that, probably more than the $10 million that he brought home this last season, but maybe not egregiously more. If there's a compromise there, sure, bring him back, and then maybe let him and JJ battle it out in camp. I don't know that that's a realistic option at this point.
Yeah,
I think he's commanded a bigger payday out there somewhere, and what we know about the NFL is it's a quarterback needy league, and the supply of quarterbacks is always lower than the demand for good quarterback play in the league. So he'll find a home somewhere. It's probably going to be like, Vegas or I don't know, New York.
Well, we don't even know the Saints. I mean,
Saints,
we don't know what Derek Carr, what they're going to do.
Well, and a new a new coaching regime too. I think the realistic version of what you just said a minute ago of having JJ and a veteran battle it out, and that veteran making $10-ish million, that realistic other veteran is probably Daniel Jones. Or someone like that. And I think we all kind of said this last week with Dustin. Sam Darnold, just off of dollars, like you said, Forrest, just off of dollars, he's going somewhere else. The Vikings don't have to. I mean, if they think the way we think they think about J.J. McCarthy, which they've already invested quite a bit in draft capital and hopes and a year of development. If they really think the way we think they think, they're not going to need to feel that need to spend a franchise tag of probably $40 million or a 2-3-ish year contract of probably 25, 30 plus a year on Sam Darnold. I think it just logistically, the answer is already out. It's plain to see. Darnold will be the Raiders quarterback, or the Giants might try to plug him in. If it weren't for his past, I'd say the Jets would make a lot of sense, but there might be some ego in that.
And some PTSD.
There might still be some ghosts flying around MetLife for Sam Darnold, but there's going to be enough teams, and there only has to be one, but there's going to be enough teams that will believe in Sam Darnold enough, and I think the Vikings believe in him. I think KOC believes in him, but there's enough teams that it will make as much sense for them to pay Sam Darnold $30-40 million a year as it makes for the Vikings to not pay him because they have JJ. Because I truly believe Daniel Jones is probably looking at this as like a reset button on his career, and unless some other team comes out straight to Daniel Jones and says, hey, we want you for 20, he's probably thinking, okay, I'll probably get a cool 10 from Minnesota, and it'll be a nice Sam Darnold year, quote unquote. I'll get to reset. Whether or not he gets to play, he'll still be in that room with KOC, who is known to be a QB whisperer. As far as what I want for the Vikings next year, use that money, overpay a little if you have to plug with reliable, solid free agents, the interior offensive line, the interior defensive line, shore up that defensive backs group. And if you do those three things, along with doing the correct decisions at quarterback, you should be able to be at least as competitive or almost as competitive as you were in 24 in 25. So I think Kwesi, the general manager, he has proven that he can be a free agency guru more than a draft guru. Get a decent running back in the draft, maybe a few flyers on other positions, and then pound it out in free agency and run it back and get KOC another coach of the year and hopefully a Lombardi trophy next year.
I will just piggyback real quick off that thought of the quarterback group coming in the draft is not near what it was last year. So I'm not saying there's not good quarterbacks in the draft, but it's not what it's going to be from last year's group. So and I'm sure teams are thinking about that when they're considering, do they sign Sam Darnold, and that will factor in as well. So
yeah, well, I think teams will easily go to free agency before they go to the draft for the answer at quarterback, whatever that is.
And again, we're obviously saying that about Sam Darnold right now. I think automatically he's going to get the money he earned this season. That could affect the Daniel Jones of it all for the Vikings too. Some team, even if the Vikings, let's just throw pretend numbers. If the Vikings are willing to throw 10 at Daniel Jones, maybe if the Raiders lose out on Sam Darnold, they're comfortable throwing 15 at Daniel Jones. Yep. And if I were Daniel Jones and one team's offering me 10, another one's offering me 15, that's not even a decision. Let's go for 15. And good for him if he does that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if the draft doesn't bode as well for quarterbacks as I think, the Vikings may get sniped on two different
I look forward to a future podcast where we can talk about that.
But if the Vikings play their cards right, if Kwesi plays the cards right, he could sign Daniel Jones to a 1-year contract or Sam Darnold to another 1-year contract and then still roll with J.J. McCarthy and have some trade bait or something to recover some draft picks or to, to make a juicy trade either right before the deadline or maybe, before training camp or whatever.
Which could be really savvy. There's just a lot of risk with that. I'm not saying that's wrong. Yeah.
High risk, but also high reward for sure.
Because if that were the case, if and maybe I'm kind of rethinking a little bit, if another team will give up quite a bit to get a quarterback, maybe you take the risk in franchising Sam Darnold for I think it's like 39 point something million a year will be the quarterback franchise, which eats up almost or more than half of your free agency money. But if you can do that and know you're going to get a second round pick, probably not a first round pick, but knowing you're going to get some return on that investment right away, that'd be savvy. That'd be like, we'd be cheering after that trade was finalized. But don't do it if you think you want Sam Darnold on the team for next year, because that's a lot of money for a guy to potentially not start.
The good news for the Vikings is I think they're in the driver's seat with all of that. And I think Kwesi and KOC can really dictate how they want to do that. But I don't want to dampen the mood. But
do you get that reference, Forrest?
I got it.
We're out of beer.
We are.
And we probably talked too long.
Never.
But final thoughts on this Backroads Brown Ale from Great Revivalist. Forrest, what do you think?
I mean, it was solid. They did a great job. I hope our beer tastes anything to that standard. I'd be happy with. So.
Oh, I'd be jumping for joy.
Yeah, so
You feel the same way?
Yeah, I really like this. This is definitely one. So the beer we had last week, the mega stupid cake, awesome sour, dessert sour,
We'll
whatever
just
it
call
was.
it the stupid beer.
Yeah, from Reunion. That I ended up saying, I might buy one for myself after a few of other ones at a bar or something. This one, I would gladly purchase another 6-pack just for myself. Definitely in the colder months of the year, maybe sitting by a fire. This was really good. I really wish I would have gotten 2 6-packs and we each could have had a couple more. But yeah, I like this one a lot. Is it my favorite beer ever? Probably not, but I couldn't tell you what my favorite beer ever is. It's really good. If you even kind of like brown ales, this Backroads Brown Ale from Great Revivalist is one that you have to try.
Yeah, ditto to everything that you guys have said. It's super good, and it's definitely in my wheelhouse. It's kind of in my preferred category of beer. I definitely lean a little more like red and amber and not so much brown.
Sure.
But I liked this, and as soon as I got some of the aroma of it, I could smell the chocolatey maltiness of it all, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be a good one. And I have not been disappointed. So really good stuff. We've already talked about it, but episode 80, which is crazy to believe that we're at the Chris Carter episode already.
Wow.
But yeah, we're gonna record episode 80.
Carter?
Don't even do that. This has been the last time you'll ever see Forrest anywhere, not even just on our podcast.
Episode 80 coming up live from the Brew Day, live
as we can be on a
pre-recorded, but we'll be brewing the beer kind of in real time there, probably in Austin's garage. Excited about that. Check us out wherever you get your content from. Social media, we're in a lot of different places. Just look us up, the Skol Hop. You can Google us. We got a website out there as well. You're probably either listening to or watching us on Spotify or YouTube. We'd love it if you'd hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, especially if they're Vikings fans, maybe Bears fans as well.
Like I said, I've been on so many, multiple times, and I appreciate the invite every single time. This is, obviously the gist is Vikings, but you don't have to be a Vikings fan to listen to.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can participate, and I enjoy hearing what a rival team, fans are thinking as well. So it's enjoyable. So
We're just here for some good discussion.
absolutely.
And good beer. And that's all you can ask for on a podcast these days.
Yeah.
So, any last words over here?
Oh man, I'm just really hoping this Skol Hop beer turns out really good.
It's not a Skol Hop beer.
Well, it is a Skol Hop beer.
It's not the Skol Hop.
It's a Skol Hop
Okay,
beer.
I
It's
just
not
want to
the Skol
preface.
Hop.
Yes,
It's a beer
It will be presented by Skol Hop.
presented by the Skol Hop.
Yeah,
There you go. I
listeners,
like that.
if you have a good name for a brown
that's
ale,
a good idea.
a nut brown ale by the Skol Hop, let us know. I think we're all fans of puns too, so
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get creative.
so, let us
Drop
know.
us a comment or send us a
I
message.
like that idea a lot. Asking the audience.
And if we get a few, maybe we'll throw out a vote somewhere. So, yeah, until Saturday, I think we need to cheers some empty glasses here because that beer was too good, and call it a night.
Skol.
Skol.
Yeah.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures, step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop.